All right, we're good. Hello. Um, so I am Natalie Carberry,
I'm Kendall Camhalls.
and we are presenting rules 1 and 2 from the Schweich chapter. So, as we are going to be in probably another Great Depression after we graduate, we really do need to be more prepared than ever to demonstrate our talents and skills while also understanding that it's better not to have a map to map out or not to have a map to follow through our careers. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. We are the green goats. We did not draw that beautiful picture of a green goat, but we thought it was appropriate. Um, like I said, I'm Natalie Carberry, and I am a major in communication studies. I'm also a senior right now.
And like I said before, I'm Kendall. I am a senior as well, and I'm a communication and media major with a double major in public relations and advertising.
So we obviously, I think, are credible people because we read these chapters closely, and we kind of consider ourselves experts in these first two rules for what Schweik calls becoming invincible executives. Our combined experiences in working in the field of communication, paid and unpaid experiences, is also vital to helping all of you understand these rules. Um, yeah, you are our audience. I think it'll be beneficial because you are also seniors right now, and we're all in a tough spot right now due to COVID. So whatever is happening out in the world after we graduate is beyond our control, no doubt, but we can control how we approach our careers and what bits of knowledge we pick up and bring into our daily lives. So today we'll be presenting the first two rules of Schweich's book, Staying Power. We will be analyzing the relevant research, and we will be offering some real life examples from our lives and how this could be, beneficial to all of us in the future, especially once we graduate. Finally, we'll each ask you 3 questions that we'd like you to consider for the discussion. And now here's Kendall with our first rule.
Thanks, Natalie. So, chapter 1 is titled Do Not Plan Out Your Career. And to give you all a brief summary of this rule, I've broken it down into 3 different parts or sections. The first part is problem of focus, second is artificial goals, and third part is 4 reasons to not plan out your career. So, to begin with the first section, the problem of focus, I've also broken this down into several different parts. But first of all, highly successful people rarely have specific long-term career plans. So you could really go to anyone who has had a long and successful career, and they're rarely going to tell you that they followed one particular plan to get where they are now. Secondly, you never really know what roadblocks and setbacks you're going to come across in life that can deter you from reaching your goals. So, it's hard to know exactly what's coming your way. The reading gave a really good example with Senator Dole. Dole suffered from a permanent disability in World War I, but with hard work, he fought back and became a prominent Kansas politician. So Dole ended up achieving a lot in his life by fighting back against these setbacks, and he never really had a career plan. The third key point of this section is success is simply not a mappable quality. So again, you're really never going to know what curveballs life is going to throw at you. And it's impossible to say for certain I'm going to be this or that. And finally, it's arrogant to feel that you know exactly how successful you're going to be in, say, a decade. It essentially sets you up for failure. It's sort of a refusal to take on these said like curveballs that life throws at you. So the second section of the reading is artificial goals. And to begin, rigid professional planning is a major obstacle to long-term professional success. So oftentimes people desire a particular title or a particular position, and this is a mistake that can cause smart and talented people to fail. So it's important to keep your options open because success can happen randomly. A lot of successful people did not expect to find themselves where they are now. And third, one way or one good piece of advice is as to how to succeed is to have a drive to do well in your specific field, and really don't have a rigid plan as to how to do so. So the third part of the reading is 4 reasons to not plan your career. So if you're always looking ahead, you're not going to know exactly where you are. So this means that you can't really focus and succeed in your current role or job position if you're focused on something else. So instead, you should be putting effort into bettering the position that you're in now so that you can be more prepared to succeed in future positions. It's good to just enjoy the moment. The second reason is that if you're going to succeed, people have to like you and you have to like yourself. So pride and arrogance can turn people against you. And it sounds kind of arrogant when you tell people like how successful you plan to be in 10 years. And this is like the easiest way to make professional enemies. The third reason is that if you're always focused on one or two steps above where you're currently in the professional ladder, you're always going to be frustrated. So this frustration can lead towards a lot of self-destructive behavior, and you can end up really becoming your own worst enemy. And the key is to keep your ambitions in what the reading called soft focus, because you never know where an opportunity might arise. And finally, the fourth reason is that neither science nor nature favor career planning. So individual personalities are fluid, as are the events that surround us. So neither can really have any impact on the emergence of disorder in really any parts of our lives. And you really can't put restraints on what's going to happen in the future. So to add this whole chapter and rule up, ambition is a good thing, and it's better to use that ambition to get through what life throws at you rather than using that ambition to follow a rigid path and step-by-step career plans. So second, I'm going to analyze this rule by including at least 3 credible sources which confirm the points of the author's rule. And to give you guys a quick analysis of all of this, as we have discussed, it's really not advisable to plan out your career, but this does not mean that you can't set goals. It just means that by planning and following a rigid path, you're not allowing room for roadblocks, and giving yourself the ability to take different paths. And again, like, this just does not mean that you should just go with the flow, not try to achieve anything, because in that case, success will not come your way. It means that you should work hard and stay motivated, and you can be successful no matter what roadblocks you're met with along the way. So I found 3 credible research sources which confirm the points of the author's rule. So according to an article that I found in Forbes, called How to Plan Your Life When You Can't Plan Your Life, it says, instead of picturing / thinking about what the perfect job or career would be and working backwards from there, begin with a direction based on a real desire in which you think you want to go. Then complement that with a strategy to discover and create opportunities consistent with your desire. So I think this is a really great article that's relevant to the topic at hand, because it's important to have an idea of what direction you want to take and then follow that direction, and be open to discovering opportunities that you find along the way. The second article that I found was from the Harvard Business Review, and Robert C. Posen wrote an article titled A Better Way to Plan Your Career. And in this article, he discusses how he learned a lot about himself in the early stages of his career. And he didn't really have a set plan, and he discovered his likes and dislikes as he went along and worked his way like through his career in the early years. And one of his main points was that you cannot control the trajectory of your career. Regarding how he achieved his success, Posen said, "There was no grand plan. I backed into my career one step at a time." And the final source, which is from the American Association for the Advancement of Science, that I found gives some guidance about planning your career. It's called Why You Should Craft Multiple Plans for Your Future Career. This article discusses the importance of having multiple career plans. And essentially the argument of the article is that by following career plans, multiple career plans, like, you set yourself up to be able to handle any curveballs or roadblocks you may be met with along the way. And I think a great point that was made in this article was that it might not be that you will be able to pursue your career you had in mind as your first choice, but if you did not plan it in the first place, you'll have an even harder time making it work. You might fail to build the right network or acquire the needed skills. And if you've drawn up multiple plans, then you'll have other options to pursue if one falls through. So next, I'm going to give you guys some real life examples and experiences which reflect the argument of Rule 1 and may be beneficial in your future career. So I'm sure many of us had dreams of becoming a ballerina or a doctor or a firefighter, or whatnot, when we were kids. And as we grew up, I'm sure those plans changed. Now, most of us are seniors and we're going to be graduating soon and planning on finding jobs out in the real world. However, given the current circumstances, excuse me, of the world due to COVID-19, I'm sure those plans have changed. The job market looks very different right now. And, I know I've had to consider a lot of different options now for my post grad life. So this is a perfect example of a curveball that life can throw you and kind of set you down a different path, and just serves as a reason as to why you shouldn't map out your career. So another real life example from my own life is when I came to DePaul, I intended on going into some field of work within the School of Business. And after taking a few of the business core classes, I realized that I was not great at it, and I really could not see myself working in um, that field anymore, or pursuing a career in business. So this was just kind of a roadblock that threw me off of the career plan that I had set in place. But luckily, I had taken a couple of communication classes and I found that my skills were more well suited for the field of communication. So this just goes to show that you must consider other options when it comes to your career instead of simply following a rigid plan. One final example is not about me specifically, but it's about my sister, and I feel like it proves this argument pretty well. So she's a sophomore in college, and she's a very driven person, has always had like a pretty set career plan. And she had an internship lined up for the summer, but due to COVID-19, the internship just full on got canceled. So she was pretty upset when life threw her this curveball, but because she is so driven and motivated, she managed to secure another internship where she'll most likely be working from home this summer. So finally, here are 3 discussion questions, which I would like you to answer from your own experiences having to do with this topic and a reply to our discussion post. First, based on the readings and foregoing the examples we have given, can you think of any other reasons as to why you should not plan your career? And second, after reading this material, what will you do differently in order to be successful? And 3, do you disagree or agree with the points made in this chapter? Why or why not? So now that I've gone over rule 1, I'm going to turn it over to Natalie.
Okay, thanks, Kendall. So I'm going to go over rule number 2 now, which is discover your talents early, discard your fantasies immediately. Very harsh, but true. So I'm going to summarize briefly what this rule is and what this chapter is really all about. I broke it down into a couple main points, so we'll go over those now. But I want to say first that this does relate to the previous rule. While Kendall says, maybe don't be too rigid in your career plan and in, what you think your path is, maybe it's smart to also not be too idealistic about what you're going to do for a living. So the first key point that I discovered was test your talents in many areas. So you most likely have several talents that really shine in your personality and in your work. As communication majors especially, I think we have a lot of different skills that are in action a lot of the time. And more than likely, those talents that you have can work for you in many different situations. So if you put those talents in action in the right situation, you might find a great career fit. Until then, experiment with using your talents in different areas and practice with them. The second point that I found was to find your area of expertise. So this works in tandem with the last rule, or with the last point. If you don't cast a wide net of different areas of work, you could end up as a stockbroker who really belongs in the Chicago Symphony Orchestra playing the bassoon. So everyone has great skills that they should attempt to build a career on. And once you know those skills and the talents that you have, you should focus in on different careers that work for them. So, there's a ton of different areas you could look at for every talent that you have. The third point that I found is to divide your interests into fantasies, avocations, and talents. So this is for me where this rule becomes the most important, and this because it's where skills and interests tend to part. So we all have things that we love to do, but will most likely never succeed in, based solely on statistical evidence. those are basically what we call fantasies in this situation. So, for example, if you love to write, but you can't actually figure out how to tell a story for the life of you, maybe it's better to spend your time developing your other skills and just write for pleasure. That's what Schweich says. Um, let's see what else. The great thing about fantasies is that they can lead to an area that you might want to work in the future. So maybe you love theater and you wanted to perform on Broadway, but you can't dance for your life or something. This could lead you to a career on Broadway as a casting director or a talent agent or something like that. If you don't necessarily have all of the skills that it takes to follow that specific career path. Avocations. I don't know if you've heard that word before, but these are different from fantasies. These are the skills that you have and talents that you have that could potentially, you could make a career out of, but you put those skills aside for the weekends and, when you're not on the job. So you have a day job and then you have your avocations. So maybe you're an engineer who likes to build birdhouses on the weekend and you have an Etsy shop for it. So you make some money, but you don't want to jeopardize maybe the rest of your income. So that is great to keep in mind. And then talents are, of course, those skills that you can apply to your actual job. The fourth point is not to confuse academic success with professional potential. So true talents are different from academic talents. That's sort of the main thing here. I'm sure you all know, I know some straight A students who really aren't going to make it in the real world because they don't know how to work with people professionally. Having a creative genius or some spark in you professionally does not always easily mix with academia. So don't let your feeling bad about your C average keep you from aiming for professional success, because the two aren't necessarily always correlated. The fifth point is finally, apply your talents with the broadest brush possible. So if you have a really strong talent, consider all the different occupations that it could lead to. Most talents, especially for us communication majors, are applicable to many different areas. And usually your first thought, it might not be the career you actually end up in. For example, great writers don't always need to write a novel or a screenplay or something. Some of them are speechwriters, press secretaries, reporters, etc. The points within this rule might seem pretty specific, but really it's all about knowing two things: knowing yourself and your skills and being flexible about what careers you look into for those skills. Now we're going to do a little bit of analysis and talk about the relevant research. Like I said, this rule essentially means you should take some time to get to know yourself, and usually that'll happen through working in many different ways, in many different fields, etc. By no means does this rule mean give up on your dreams if you want to pursue something few people succeed in. However, you would benefit from evaluating what skills you have that would help you turn that dream into a success. You should definitely be an optimistic realist, keeping in mind that certain lines of work require special skills, and those are incredibly developed skills, and developing any skill usually takes a lot of time and sometimes a lot of money. It's all about figuring out basically what you think is best, is the best use of the investment you make in yourself. So the research that I collected on this topic, the first relevant research article I found was a study done in the UK of doctors with avocations and burnout rates. So it basically found that doctors who had avocations or fantasies, they reported a lot less burnout. And doctors obviously work really hard. It's a really demanding, sort of more fast-paced career, I would say, right now it's really fast-paced for doctors. But doctors obviously have a lot on their plates, and when they found time to do things that they loved outside of work, they actually were more likely to thrive and not get burned out. The next thing I found was statistics on hiring and talents that are needed the most in marketing and ad fields. I looked at those specifically just because I think it's the most relevant for us as comms people. So this infographic is helpful. It just sort of shows technical skills and non-technical skills that people look for the most when hiring people. And as you can see, these are skills that, people have usually in communications, and they're also applicable in many different areas. Social media management, you can take that pretty much anywhere. creativity and collaboration, those are very broadly applicable. So you can think about all of the different things that are needed, or all of the different areas you can work in with those skills. And then the third study I found was a study of a couple of scientists in the 20th century who all won Nobel Prizes. And it found that basically successful scientists throughout the 20th century had a high number of hobbies outside of work. So those, honestly, having more hobbies will probably lead to just a little bit more success, because your focus can be elsewhere, and that's usually a lot healthier, honestly. So overall, it kind of seems like if you want more success, you should take time to do things that make you happy outside of working and determine which skills and talents you can make a career out of. Okay, so now we're going to go to some real life examples. So as you can see, we're going to talk about me because I'm in all these photos. Um, in my own life, I have tried and tested many different skills I have in many different areas, and I've considered these rules honestly. So the first example I have, not to toot my own horn, but I love to sing, and I am a pretty talented singer, I would say. I've invested a great deal of my life into it. I think over 12 years of my life, I've devoted to basically becoming a better singer, studying it, working at it, um, so that, I can have a really fine-tuned talent. So I know for a fact that I could, if I had wanted to, probably have made some money off of this. But for me, I know for a fact also that I want to make a little bit more money or have a higher degree of success. So I've chosen to make singing more of an avocation for me and not my main career path. So I'm essentially just going to sing on the weekends, and I've totally worked that out because I know for a fact that I also have other applicable skills that I can apply to different careers as well. So I can sing after the office closes, and that's fine for me. The second example that I have is also about me and performing. I was in theater a lot as a kid too, and I'm pretty confident with public speaking as a result of all of the years I spent performing. So I have a lot of public speaking skills just as a foundation because of that. So I've been able to translate that ability into public speaking, and I actually work as a tour guide. If you can see on that bottom corner picture, that's me and some tour guides. And actually, through working on my public speaking skills as a tour guide, it kind of translated, and I learned that I also had skills with persuasion and with, being able to think on my feet. So that was really helpful, and I've learned more about the skills that I have, and I can take that and apply that to other things later on. And the third example I have is a level of failure that I experienced, actually. I started out in college, actually at Drake University, if you can see. I did transfer, but I started out as a journalism major in college. I thought, because I have writing skills, that would be a great field to translate those into. But I realized pretty quickly that I didn't have all of the interest and skills that went into journalism. For example, I don't like to write or speak in a way that's pretty concise. Hopefully you can see that now. And journalists really need those skills for their newsroom jobs. So I tried to apply that skill, and I learned that maybe I'm better off in a communication major. And once I came to DePaul, I changed that, and I found a great deal of success with that strategy. So those are my examples. And then I have a couple discussion questions for you as well. So the first question, what are your different fantasies, avocations, and talents? Have you determined any of those yet? What do they look like for you? Second, do you consider yourself an expert in anything at this moment, or are you preparing for expertise in an area? Like, are you building on one of your skills right now? If so, what is it? And then what's one talent that you have that you were able to apply to many different areas? So, I think as communication majors, we all kind of have that. So those will be posted in the chat. And yeah.
So that just about sums up our presentation. And in conclusion, today we summarized rules 1 and 2 from Staying Power by Thomas A. Schweich. We analyzed them according to research, gave you some real life examples, and explained how this information will benefit you in your future career. Like we said, we have 6 questions that we would like you to answer in this week's discussion. You can find these questions in our initial discussion submission. So we hope you found that the information that we presented you with to be valuable, and we hope you consider it as you enter the workforce. Thank you for listening, and stay safe.
Yay! And Liz, we're excited. All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.